You sit across from your wife in a cold room that pretends to be warm. Between you is a thin slice of bread with a careful smear of peanut butter, and a stove that is trying its best with a few small pieces of coal. Your hands remember grease and rust. Her hands remember a long line at a counter where boxes were opened and names were called. You look at the bread. She looks at the fire. You both picture two different uniforms. You both picture the same city. You both know that survival has more than one face. You think the man in the thick coat with the star on his cap kept the night quiet enough for sleep. She thinks the people who filled the box across the ocean kept the morning soft enough for breakfast. You keep your thoughts short because short thoughts are safer. Who do you thank first? The one who gives you coal or the one who gives you peanut butter? If victory is measured by the lull of the street at midnight, then one answer feels right. If victory is measured by the weight of the spoon in the hand at noon, then the other answer seems truer. Who defeated fascism for years? The soldier who reached Berlin, or the stranger who reached your table? You place the bread back on the saucer and try to hear the cities. A bicycle bell somewhere, a shout that is not angry, which is a rare sound now. The low breath of a stove. Out beyond your window, Berlin is still a map of wound. The edges of buildings look like teeth. The air smells like wet mortar and old smoke. Every corner offers a memory nobody wants to claim. In this air, a question keeps tapping on your shoulder. Who did the real breaking? The army that smashed its way street by street, or the factories that turned out trucks, rails, flour and tin? Which hand took the weight? The hand that held the rifle, or the hand that packed the crate? Work is the only clear idea you have. You are a bicycle mechanic again. You do not have a shop sign, only a roof that did not fall and a wall that still resembles a wall. You lay out spokes like silver twigs and wipe your hands with a rag that was once a shirt. When a customer walks into your corner, you do not ask for money first. In this season, money is an idea. Food. So, a little coal, a button that fits. Those are real. If you had to name the rhythm of the city, you would call it barter. If you had to name the mood, you would call it cautious. One afternoon, a soldier with a fur hat brings you a bicycle that limps. The chain snags. One break is only a rumor. He holds the frame with a tenderness that surprises you. As if the bicycle is the first quiet thing he has touched in a year. He understands a few words of your language. You understand a few of his. You point, nod, lift the wheel, spin it, listen. He reaches into a bag and sets down a small, tightly wrapped parcel. Coal, the kind that will turn a kitchen into a room again. At least for a while. You take the parcel in both hands because heat is not a thing to be casual about. You get to work. You clean the chain. You fix the brake with the best pair of pads you have left. You true the rear wheel with a patience you have learned from hunger. When you spin it again, the wobble is gone. The soldier smiles once. It is not a victory smile, it is a relief smile. He closes your fingers around the parcel and nod. You nod back. In this quiet trade, you wonder where the ledger of history will write this moment. Did fascism lose because men like him kept going until they could not be stopped? Or did fascism lose because someone far away made sure you had rubber and steel and grease even now? You carry the parcel home at dusk and put 2 pieces into the stove. The flame lifts up as if it has been waiting its whole life to do that simple job. Your wife reminds you that tomorrow she will cross the checkpoint to the other sectors. She has a slip of paper with her name on it. Stamped and re-stamped, she has learned to walk with the same steady pace and the same mild face that says, I have nothing to hide. You think of the men at the post who look into bags and look into faces as if both are mirrors. You think of the street between the posts and how it pretends to be an ordinary street. If you must choose a date for when the war ended and another life began, would it be the day the soldiers planted a flag in a broken city? Or the day the first permission slip let a woman step through a gate with her head higher? Who ends a war? The side that closes the last door of the bunker, or the side that opens the first door of the ration office? The next morning you escort your wife as far as the line will allow. The air is cold enough to be noticed but not cruel. The queue is patient but not content. When she reaches the window, she presents her paper and gets a nod that means yes, go. She disappears into the other side and you wait. Time has a habit of stretching when you have nothing to do but stare at boots. You stand there for a while until the guard waves you away. You walk home, fix 2 more bicycles, wipe 2 more chains, speak 5 words to 3 people. When the light is thick, you go to the checkpoint again and wait where you can be seen without being seen. Your wife appears with a small bag. The bag is light, but the look on her face is heavy with careful joy. Back home, she sets the bag on the table and takes out a tin and a paper-wrapped bar and a small packet of powder. You read the letters on the box. They are easy to read even after a year without practice. The word is short and confident, care. Beside it, a smaller word, USA. The lid lift. The smell is sweet and nutty and foreign and familiar at the same time. Your wife hands you a spoon and laughs quietly without sound. You taste a small, careful amount because you want the taste to last longer than it lasts. You feel a softness at the back of your throat that you have not felt since before the sirens. You do not talk much while you eat. Talking is not good company for food, not when food is rare, but presence is a kind of conversation. The spoon moves back and forth between you and the world feels a little closer to normal. When the spoon rests, the questions start their quiet work again. Who ended the fear you felt when the nights were loud? Who ends the fear you feel when the cupboards are bare? Who defeated fascism for your street? The army that marched to the capital of the enemy, or the ships that pushed across the Atlantic against ice and U-boats with boxes that say, "We see you." If the end of a war is proof, what counts as proof? A captured city or a full stomach? You cross back and forth between these thoughts like you cross between the sectors. You are careful with your words when you are in the East. You are careful with your words when you are in the West. There are many kinds of silence and you are learning all of them. You discover that gratitude can be both honest and quiet. You discover that memory can be both sharp and polite. Your wife says little phrases that hold 2 truths at once. Warmth at night matters. Breakfast in the morning matters. You nod. You touch the stove. You touch the tin. If someone forced you to pick a single saviour, they would not be asking for your view. They would be asking for your loyalty. The war may be over, but the habit of choosing sides has not retired. Who really gets the credit? The armies that paid in blood in the East, or the factories and farms that paid in cargo in the West? You go back to work. There is enough to do for 3 mechanics. A messenger boy brings a wheel that has kissed too many curbs. A nurse brings a frame with a crack you can mend. A porter wants a seat changed and a bell that actually rings. Each face brings a piece of the city into your little shop without a sign. Each repair is a small vote for motion. Every time a chain stops squeaking, the city becomes a fraction more possible. When you think about victory now, you measure it in meters pedalled without a rattle. You measure it in hours of sleep without a shout. You measure it in slices shared without a quarrel. You ask yourself the same question in fresh words each day. Who made this possible? The men who took the city by storm, or the men and women who made sure the storm did not swallow everything? One evening, your neighbour brings news that a memorial service will be held in a hall that survived by accident. Names will be read. A few photographs will be held up. The photographs are small and the faces are younger than you remember. You stand at the back and keep your hat in your hands because it is the right thing to do. Someone speaks about endurance. Someone else speaks about justice. A small choir tries to find the right key for sorrow. You feel the weight of the room pull down on your shoulders and you let it. Memory is not a burden you should try to dodge. When the names end, people drift outside into a courtyard. The conversation begins in low tone. The questions arrive the way crows do. In a small group, who kept the enemy retreating? Who kept the bread arriving? Who turned the tide? Who turned the lights back on? Was it the Red Army pushing from city to city until the map gave up? Was it American industry filling the sea lanes until the map could breathe again? If you say both, somebody will nod. If you say only one, somebody will test your reasons. For you, the answer is always situated. It is not an opinion, it is a receipt. After the service, you rummage in your drawer and find an old radio. It is not handsome. The cloth over the speaker is torn. The dial is a little clouded. But a wire still knows what to do when it meets a socket. At first, there is only a wide river of static. Then a thin voice arises from it and walks toward you. The voice speaks about trials that will be held. It speaks about leaders being questioned. It says words like tribunal and crimes and witnesses and never again. The voice also speaks about bridges being repaired, rail yards being cleared, shipments arriving, farms tried and failed and tried again. You lean closer to the radio and wonder, who is responsible for which part of what you are hearing? Who beat the army that wore black and who beat the winter that followed? Who defeats fascism? The soldier who raises the flag over a ruined dome? Or the volunteer who seals a wooden crate with flour and soap and a lettuce? Your wife sits beside you and counts the matchsticks left in the little box. The matches mean heat and light, short bursts that make the stove accept its duty. She shakes the box and smiles because there are more than she feared and fewer than she hoped. You recognize the feeling. You also count in your hair. You count spoons of peanut butter. You count screws left in your parts tin. You count the kilometers on the worn odometer of a bicycle that still remembers a factory in a city that did not burn. If numbers are a kind of verdict, then the question remains, which ledger closed the accounts, the ledger of battles or the ledger of supplies? At the market the next morning, a man sells coins that are not official but are recognizably valuable. Another sells buttons that do not match anything now but might match something later. A woman sells time by standing in line for others. People trade with the skill of people who have learned not to say certain things out loud. You overhear two men arguing in the language of half-truths. One declares that the Eastern armies absorbed the worst blows and struck the hardest blow back. The other declares that without the Western ships and planes, the East would have been too starved, too blind, too still to strike. Both men are not wrong. Both would prefer to be the only one right. You turn a wheel in your hands and ask yourself a question that runs through the avenues like a rumour. Who owns the word victory when all of us own the bill? Another soldier visits you, a quiet one who speaks through gestures. His tyre has a cut that cannot be patched. You find a tyre that almost fits and plead with it until it agrees to do the job. He points at the clock. He points at the road. He points at you and touches his cap. He leaves behind a bundle of firewood that will make your small room generous for 2 evenings. You add it to the corner where fuel waits to be cool. Later that day, your wife returns with a new story about a delivery. Powdered milk, soap, a tin of something you do not recognize until she tells you. Corned beef. She says the word with the care people use for proper names. You boil water. You open the tin. The smell is not elegant. It is honest. You both eat slowly again, not because ceremony is required, but because speed would be rude. While you eat, you call up the old question and dress it in new words. Who finished the job against the regime that hated everything that was not itself? Was it the millions in uniforms who took cities with their feet, or the millions in coveralls who turned factories into a river that never stopped flowing? You make a rule for yourself. Each time you fix a wheel for a soldier, you will remember the tanks and the boots that came east to west and then west to east. Each time you taste something from a box with block letters, you will remember the men who stood on cold decks and the women who worked beside hot machine. If someone asks you which one matters more, you will answer with another question. Which one could have done the job without the other? You will not give that answer loudly. You will give it with the same tone you use when you say please when you ask for a new tube. The same tone you use when you say thank you when someone slides a little coal across the table. The days begin to find a rhythm. You rise, you fix, you fetch, you share, you wait, you cross, you return. The city finds a rhythm too. It is not the rhythm of a parade. It is the rhythm of hands that have not given up. A tram line groans back to life and people cheer. The ringing of a tram is more persuasive than a speech. A school opens in a building that forgot it was a school and remembers again. Your wife meets a teacher who has saved a box of chalk like treasure. You fix 3 bicycles for young men who will carry books again. You wonder if this is what defeat of fascism looks like up close. Not a single date circled in a red pencil, but 100 little circles in ordinary graphite. The radical act is to resume. On a windy afternoon, the checkpoint is busier than usual. News has travelled along some secret wire. You wait among people who have learned not to ask why. Behind the glass, a man stamps papers with a rhythm meant to display authorities. He stamps, and still the line crawls. You feel the energy inside the crowd grow tight. An old woman drops her bag and a dozen hands reach to help. A child starts to cry and no one is embarrassed by the sound. A young soldier adjusts his belt and looks like he wants to be anywhere else. In that moment, you realize that the word checkpoint is the one word that says the war is both over and not over. You stand on your side of the city and look at what used to be one street. You ask yourself again, who won the last war and who is building the next day? Who split this city in the name of order and who will mend it in the name of hope? That night, the argument returns to the small table with the same courtesy as before. Your wife places a little jam on a plate as if she's apologizing to the plate for so little. You count the coal. You both speak in careful sentences. She says that a hand that sends food has a special kind of powers, because hunger is tyranny too. You say that a hand that holds a rifle has another kind of power, because fear is tyranny too. You listen to yourselves and find that neither of you wants to be wrong. You decide to be right together in a humble way. You decide to say thank you twice in your heads and once with your eyes. The idea of a single saviour does not fit into your room. The city outside does not allow such simple furniture. Who really defeated fascism? The side that broke the enemy or the side that fed the broken? What do you call the act of letting a family go to sleep and wake to breakfast? What do you call the act of making it possible for a family to sleep because the shooting has stopped? The radio talks about a bridge that has reopened. You think of bridges and feel the pull of two meanings. A bridge is what a tank needs to move forward. A bridge is what a truck needs to bring flour. Who does a bridge belong to? The soldiers who cross it or the civilians who stand on it to sell apples? Perhaps the answer is that a bridge belongs to whoever does not blow it up. Perhaps the answer is that defeating fascism is not only killing it, but refusing to become it after it is dead. You try out the thought and find that it rests well in your chest. You put another small choice of coal into the stove and watch the flame accept the gift. You ask the old question in a calmer voice. Who should be thanked first? Not in a crowd, not on a poster, not in a speech, but here in this room, with this stove and this tin and these two hands. You tell yourself a small story to fall asleep. The story has two characters. One walks in boots and carries a rifle. He limps a little. He looks older than he is. He shows up when the street must be cleaned of danger. The other wears a plain coat and carries a clipboard. She looks younger than she is. She shows up when the cupboard must be filled with something that tastes like the future. In your story, they do not argue. They nod to each other like professionals at the same job site. The job site is your kitchen table. The job is making sure a city can be a city again. If someone asks which of them defeated fascism, you will say they each did what the other could not do. You will say the victory is share, and you will mean it exactly, not as a polite sentence, but as a description. Morning returns with a smell of dust that is almost friendly. You carry a wheel to a man who has a repair ticket with a number that looks lucky. He pays you with a small candle and a thank you that is too large for the price. You take the candle home and save it for a night when the word outage will visit your block. You pass the checkpoint and a new guard studies your face like he's trying to memorize it. You pass a poster that promises something on one wall and a poster that promises something else on another. You decide to let the promises talk to each other and leave you out of it. You watch a girl pick up a school bag that is not really a bag but a folded coat with a string. You watch a boy discover that a bell on a bicycle can sound like a bell again, not an alarm. You feel something close to ease. If this is not victory, then victory is trying to be this. You hear a rumour that a big speech was given somewhere far away. The speech is about reconstruction, about plans that begin with large letters and end with budgets that look impossible. You do not know if the rumour is true. You do not know if the plan will touch your street. You do know that plans that cross oceans are fragile unless they are carried by people who know how to carry heavy things. You ask yourself the everyday version of the big question: who rebuilds your block? The committee with maps or the neighbour with a shovel? The honest answer is both, if both remember not to forget the other. The honest answer is that defeating fascism is a verb that keeps working long after the parades would have ended, if there had been parade. A messenger brings you a small parcel with an address you do not recognize. It is a tube for a wheel, paid for in advance by someone who wrote a note that says thank you for keeping us moving. You set the tube on the shelf and notice that the shelf looks less bare than it did a month ago. You do not trust the feeling, and that is all right. Distrust is a coat the city still wears, but you allow yourself one small luxury. You imagine a week with no new holes to patch that are not of your own making. You imagine your wife standing in a line that moves at a human pace. You imagine the checkpoint as a place where people nod without suspicion. In the middle of your imagining, you hear the familiar question again. Who helps you imagine? The ones who ended the war with a banner at the heart of the enemy, or the ones who end a little war in your kitchen with a spoon? You walk home early to surprise your wife with the last of the tin on a piece of bread. You find her writing a list. Soap, matches, a little coffee if it exists, fabric for mending, a book for a neighbour's boy who is trying to remember what school feels like. You read over her shoulder and add one item. Thank you, to be said twice. She smiles and draws a small box next to the words so you can put a check mark. You both know you will not say the words in public in the same room to the same people. You both know You both know that truth does not stop being truth because the world is complicated. You eat the bread slowly and give the last bite to the future. If you stand in your doorway at twilight, you can see three kinds of light. There is the glow from a stove that means a household has fuel. There is the pale ribbon from a radio dial that means people are listening. There is the thin stripe from a desk lamp that it means a child is reading. Each light is a piece of a sentence. Each piece says the war is over in a way that a banner never could. If someone asked you how fascism was defeated, you can point to the lights and say this is what defeat looks like in practice. The silence in the street is earned. The food in the bowl is earned. The page under the pen is earned. Who earned it? The army that would not stop until the enemy capital fell, or the nation that would not stop until the supply lines ran like arteries. You go to bed and listen to the building settle. Old wood speaks in old sounds. Brick sighs. Somewhere a kettle clicks as it cools. The question rests a little. Which is the best you can hope for? Sleep comes in sections like a book with thin paper. When you wake into a day that looks almost like yesterday, which is its own kind of blessing. You will fix what can be fixed. You will accept what cannot. You will carry gratitude like a folded note. You will keep the note where it cannot be seen and where it cannot be lost. If a man in a coat hands you coal, you will nod and think of armies moving through snow and cities. If a woman with a manifest hands you a tin, you will nod and think of ships moving through storms and distances. If someone insists you will choose not to insult either, by pretending the other did not matter. In years to come, perhaps someone will ask you for a story. Perhaps they will want a clean answer dressed in a line suitable for a monument. You will not deny them comfort, but you will make sure the comfort is honest. You will tell them that the night got quieter because one set of men fought until the sound ran out, and the morning got softer because another set of people worked until the hunger eased. You will tell them that the city became a city again because a bicycle could be repaired and a stove could be fed and a door could be knocked on without fear. Who defeated fascism? The ones who broke it and the ones who refused to let the brokenness define what came next. Your wife pours a little hot water into 2 cups and puts a pinch of something that calls itself tea into each. Steam rises and catches the window briefly before it disappears. You hold your cup and let the heat move into your fingers. She looks at you and you look at her. The room is still small. The world is still large. But at this table, the question finds its place. The man in the heavy coat gives you coal. The other gives you peanut butter. You thank both in that order today and another day away. Perhaps in the other order. It is not a compromise. It is a memory. It is not a hedge. It is a truth. You lift your cup a little as if to an unseen guest. A city answers you with the small sounds of people doing what people do when they plan to keep living. If you were forced to choose a single word to end this long day, you would choose enough. Enough quiet to sleep, enough food to divide without counting to the last crumb, enough trust to cross a line and return, enough light to read a list, enough work to be tired in a good way, enough humility to share credit with strangers you will never meet, enough honesty to admit that no one won this by themselves, The war ended because enough people in enough places did enough of the necessary. Some wore boots, some wore aprons, some wore uniforms with stars, some wore overalls with oil stain. Who defeated fascism? You can answer now without raising your voice. The East with its marches, the West with its shipment, and you, with your hands, holding your place in a city that would not let itself stay ruined.